afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful edition of Music at the Library. We are here today at the Williamson County Library in Franklin, Tennessee. Thank you all so much for being here. It is an honor and a privilege to introduce today the incredible musician that you all are getting ready to hear. And wow, to try to tell you everything that he's done, I'd probably be here an hour, so I will give you the spark notes. At the age of 7, he taught himself how to play guitar, and by the age of 14, he built his own synthesizer. In 1984, he created a listening group called Space for Music. A few years later, he created a multimedia studio called Space for Media, and it combined graphics, animation, and music. In 1994, right as the World Wide Web was getting started, he created the website, Space for Music, and in 1999, he started his own record label, also called Space for Music. He's been a consultant for Apple for music technology. He's performed at multiple planetariums. He's been featured on NPR's syndicated radio programs, Hearts of Space and Echo, and he is currently working on a TV show called The Music Tellers. So please help me welcome today, Tony Gerber.
Thank you. So this is the second time I've played in Franklin, I believe. I also have a blues band called the Cotton Blossom Band, and that's kind of utilizing that early guitar stuff that I was teaching myself. Was kind of a Mississippi Delta kind of picking style and stuff. So actually B.B. King's bass player of 17 years is the bass player in my group, and Roy Futureman Wooten, who was with the Flecktones, has been with us a couple times, and Mason Stevens. So we played at, Kimbrough's Pickin' Parlor, which was a neat spot. But this is the first time I've been in the library here, so. I do mostly, on this type of stuff, I'm known for what's called ambient space music, and it's pretty much instrumental. It's music that you might attune to hearing as a soundtrack, for a movie or something like that. Let me turn my ringer off here too. And I have done some movie stuff. But recently, I added Native American flute. Recently, as in within the last decade. I am part Native American, so it was a natural thing, and it's made the electronic music a little more, acceptable around the world because the flute is in everybody's culture. In fact, the flute's possibly the oldest melodic instrument. About 35,000 years ago, the Neanderthal used wooden flutes that they found. So that's that and the drum. They were actually pretty sophisticated. The Neanderthal, the paintings on the caves, and the flutes and the drums. So they were pretty cultural for their time. So anyway, you're going to hear a little bit of all that today. So I'll also add that most all the music that I do is of the moment. And it's different every time I play. And I've recently been performing in the virtual world. I've got a daughter that's 8 years old, and right around the time she was born, I discovered the virtual world, which is a way of playing music from your home and broadcasting it into venues, three-dimensional venues in the computer, where you have avatars that are there that are just people from around the world that come in and listen. So I've actually kind of pioneered some of that about 7 years ago, and was one of the first people to go in and perform music in the virtual world. And now I've done about 1,500 of those concerts, and it's just been an amazing 7 years of doing that. So that's kind of where I spend quite a bit of my time, but I'm now gearing up to go out and tour and play out as my daughter's getting older now, so I don't feel bad if I have to leave for 6 weeks. I pretty much stayed in town for the last 8 years, and now I'm ready to venture back out again. But anyway, let's get started here, and we'll start with a little solo flute. All the flutes I play are Native American flutes. They come in different keys. That's why I have so many different ones, kind of like harmonicas. Harmonicas all are, a C harmonica, G harmonica, whatever. You've got to have several harmonicas to play, and it's kind of the same way with the Native American flute. This is in the key of B. Thank you. You know, lots of times I just do one long song and just keep playing, but I'm going to break it up a little bit and talk in between since, you know, really, there is a danger of falling asleep out there. I've actually put myself to sleep playing before. Doesn't happen very often, but yeah, I mean, I play all this stuff mainly for myself, you know, I mean, it's always just, but it's great that lots of other people enjoy it as well, so it's kind of extra special in that way. Let's see, let me more sounds up here. You know, I did also, if anybody saw Vanilla Sky, that Tom Cruise movie a while back, I mean, it's been a while back. I think it's like 12, 13 years ago, but did have some music in that. It was probably the biggest kind of public or Hollywood thing for me, was that movie. All right. Does this speaker sound okay? I'm all in stereo with special stereo effects and all that, but we're just playing through one speaker, so I'm glad it sounds good. Just for your information, I'm actually mixing everything and recording everything in multitrack on an iPad here. I just started doing that in December, and it's pretty amazing. I have professional inputs in this box that everything goes to, but the entire mixing console and all the multitrack, everything, effects and everything is happening in the iPad. So this right here, this little thing right here is a 48-channel recording studio. So things have come a long way since I moved to Nashville about 33 years ago. Let's see, did I mention? Yeah, this was a drone flute. One of those doesn't have any holes on the side. It just plays one note. And then you play the melodic on the other side. And there's two holes that you blow through, so it's kind of an interesting.
Is that traditional type of flute too?
Yeah, I believe the double is something that they did. But, you know, some of these look like pieces of furniture compared to, you know, the traditional. So, like this one. This one in particular, this guy's a mathematician that makes these, and they're in perfect tune. And most of these others that I play are in perfect tune because I play with other instruments that are in standard tuning. Traditional Native American flutes, they just tune, they call grandfather tuning. They just tune it by their ear, and sometimes it's a key and sometimes it's not. So I've kind of, these flutes, these guys have endorsed me with, and the Odell Borg flutes, actually, these right here, they're also real thick walls, which means that they'll hold up to weather changes. If you go out and play in the desert, or you go out and play in the woods here in Tennessee, if it's a thin wood, it'll go in and out of tune. So that's one of the reasons I play with these particular ones. I'll play something on this one. This one's made by Brent Haynes. He has a company called Wood Sounds, and it's an amazing flute. This is made out of rosewood and Alaskan yellow cedar. And my virtual world avatar's name is Cypress Rosewood, and I play wooden flutes. I'm kind of a giant elf in the virtual world. My character is, and I live in a huge tree. Everything's, you know, related to trees, so Cypress Rosewood's my name. And you can, you can type that into the web and it'll bring up tons of stuff. I've got movies up there of me performing, and actually cypressrosewood.com is even a website. But anyway, he gave me this because it was rosewood. This looks like cypress, but it's not. So we'll see. This is a traditional song here. You'll probably recognize nice. Turning my reverb up and down on my microphone here. I'm going to see if I can get a button to work here. I've got a foot pedal that seems to be going on the frets here. Hang on just one second. Finally worn out. Oh well, that's my looper. So I won't be doing any looping today. Or actually, maybe the second half. I've got another one over there I can hook up. Let's see what. Okay, so I'm going to play for about. I'm going to do one more song and then take a short break, get this other looper hooked up, and then I'll come back. This little synthesizer right here, I think it says it on that side, but it's a Moog synthesizer. And Moog was one of the first commercially available synthesizers in about 1970. And actually here in Nashville, what was Peabody University, now it's kind of merged in with Vanderbilt, but at that time, they actually had an electronic music department, and a man by the name of Gil Trifall, who's still around, not in this area, but He was friends with Bob Moog, and Bob gave the number 3 serial number of his first modular, big giant knobs all over synthesizer was there at Peabody. And now things have come down in size, although this is still analog. This is not, this is, still got basically the same kind of electronics. It's just a lot smaller version, but it still has that sound, that wonderful Moog sound. And that which sounds like. It's monophonic. It can only play one note at a time. And I like that sound. take a short pause here and kind of get my pedals going, and then come back.
We're here at the Williamson County Administrative Complex today till 2:30, collecting household hazardous waste from the residents of Williamson County and the surrounding counties. Things that are eligible or acceptable to bring to the event today are things from your garage, your home, maybe under the kitchen sink or in the shed that could be corrosive, flammable, reactive, or toxic. Things like old gasoline, kerosene, fluorescent lamps from the home, pesticides, herbicides, cleansers, things of that nature.
Yeah, as part of Williamson County's hazardous waste collection program, we of the Sheriff's Office, Williamson County Sheriff's Office, we're out here today taking hazardous waste such as prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, and liquids, and properly disposing them. So it's a facility for the citizens of Williamson County to come get rid of their old drugs, and they'll be disposed of properly.
What we do not accept at this site is what we call BOPA, batteries, oil, paint, antifreeze, and electronics. But we do have a location that does collect those year-round, and that's the City of Franklin Solid Waste Department at 417 Century Court.
So I guess one of the most interesting things we've received today at the HHW event is this bottle of mercury. I would estimate it probably weighs about 12 pounds. It was in a vehicle. We don't quite have the story about how someone came across this amount, but without a doubt it was worth our being here today just to get this amount of mercury out of the waste stream.
Welcome back for the second half. Please help me welcome once again Tony Gerber.
Thank you. Okay, so the other pedal doesn't have the adapter to it. But that's okay. I got enough stuff here. I can get by. If I just had one instrument and it went but cahoots, then I'd be in trouble. I think I can actually get this thing going here. So I don't know if you know what a looper is, but a looper is actually kind of like it's kind of like recording a part onto tape, and then if you would just picture that tape was just a big loop, it was connected to itself. It just keeps playing over and over and and over the same thing. So then you can put the instrument down and you can play something else. So that's, lots of times that's how, I mean, Phil Keggy does that a lot with, if you've ever seen Phil Keggy play, he's here in Franklin, of course, the legend. I mean, he uses loopers a lot, and lots of times when we're by ourselves, it's kind of a way of getting another part playing behind us. So I'm going to try to get that happening with this guitar. For some reason, my guitar is not sounding at all like what I'm used to it sounding like, so I'm not quite sure if it's probably that one speaker thing there, but
It sounds great. Tell us
yeah, I know, yeah, it sounds fun.
Tell us what kind of guitar it is.
This is actually this is kind of an unusual Gibson Les Paul guitar. It's called a rough cut. So it's not sanded. It doesn't have any finish on it. There's no trim. There's no inlays. It has wooden walnut knobs with little rubber grommets around the outside as grippers. And they put this out real briefly. I think there was only 500 of these made. And then, to be honest with you, when I got this, it was kind of made for some real heavy-duty rock and rollers, and it had the same kind of wiring that it had like back in 1958 or something. And it was so noisy that it was unusable for me because I play a little quieter music. I'm not up there, well, mostly I'm not up there like, rocking out on it. So I took it back to the factory and the custom shop, and they totally rewired it for me. The wires didn't even have insulation on it. And I asked him, I took it in, I said, how could you make a guitar like this, and have it sound like that? Because, I mean, it's not that it's discounted or anything. I mean, but being Cypress Rosewood in the virtual world and the way I do rustic furniture, make rustic furniture occasionally. It's not something I do all the time, but I really like, I like that kind of stuff. So this guitar really appealed to me because it was real raw looking. And anyway, they said, well, this was their trash bin guitar because people dumpster dive and get parts out of their trash bins and piece together guitars, which of course, they frown on that big time. And I actually have one of those guitars that somebody dumpster dived and I pieced together, and it's a great guitar, but I would never tell Gibson that. So I didn't feel bad. I wanted to buy one because I did a project for him a few years ago. I put Gibson Island into the virtual world, and it was like a 1-year project. And so I got this guitar at that time, and this is their official trash can guitar. And so anyway, they rewired it for me and put a different pickup in and it quieted it down. And so this is a one-of-a-kind, actually, guitar because of the way it's wired up on the inside. So, but it's the only Les Paul that I have because I was a Fender guy for most of my time.
Can you show everybody the back? It's so cool on how you can see all the wiring in it.
Yeah. And now the wires have insulation around them. They were bare wires when I got it, which hence some of the noise. And so my guitar in the virtual world looks identical to this. I had when I was putting Gibson Virtual Island in there, we had to build 3D models of about 200 and some of their guitars. And so we called her the digital luthier in France. I think she was probably 21 or 22 years old. Her dad was an actual luthier that built guitars, but she was good with 3D graphics in the computer, and she built exact replicas of their instruments, and she built an exact replica with this, except it's inlaid with Cypress Rosewood in the fingerboard because it's what I use in the virtual world. But it's got the little rubber grommets. It's actually about 220 little digital 3D parts that she built to put the whole thing together. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, and since I got this, I've been playing it. My Fenders got flooded, so they'll still work, but my one I still need to get worked on. It's kind of seized up, the electronics and stuff. But I was in Atlanta performing during the great flood of 2010 here, and I had this guitar with me, so it didn't get wet. But anyway, let's get moving on here. And if anybody does have any questions in between hand, feel free to ask. tell you about this one other little device here. If you haven't ever seen one of these, this is called an e-bow, which is kind of like an electric bow in that it kind of makes it sound a little bit like a violin. It's an electromagnet, and when you straddle a string, it vibrates the string continually. So it's a constant sustain while you're playing. So in that way, it is kind of like bowing, where you get that. And playing around with the timbres and stuff, you can. I mean, I don't really care for it to sound like a violin, but that's the concept behind that. So I use that a lot as a pretty signature sound. You'll recognize it lots if you hear it out there. Let's see. Take care, folks. Thanks for coming. What else could I talk about here? Oh, yeah. Yep.
Is there any particular tribe of the American Indian that you base this off of?
No, I mean nothing that I'm doing is traditional in that sense. It's only traditional in that I'm part Native American and I'm doing it. I'm not playing any particular tunes or anything that has any tradition at all. Now, I will add though that when the first time I got a flute, a Native American flute, was about 11 years ago, and I was dating my wife, and I used to play it for her, and it was called a courting flute, and that's actually one of the purposes of the flute. So I came into the flute with that very purpose. I bought it when we were out and about, and I didn't really know that, actually. I just happened to see it, started playing it. I played it for a few weeks, and then I discovered later on that, wow, I really got into the flute in a true way, So anyway, after that, I started buying other stuff and merging it with my electronics and stuff. So, but the most recent instrument is something called an iwi. And that is this instrument. And an iwi stands for electronic wind instrument. And I grew up in Elkhart County in northern Indiana. And everybody supported music up there. And Selmer was a company that was up there. And in the 1970s, they had an instrument called a lyricon. And I played saxophone and band and stuff back then, and clarinet and symphony when I was in high school. So, man, when that thing came out, it was like an electronic saxophone or something, and I wanted that so bad, but it was very expensive. So I always had that in the back of my mind. And I've had this now for I bought this probably about 4 years ago, but this was the first time. It took all those years before it kind of, it's a lot different now. They're a lot more powerful than they were then, of course, because of the time thing. But at one point, I think maybe it was in maybe 1990 or 91, there was 12 people here in Nashville from my hometown in Indiana, Napanee, Indiana, about 5,000 people, and about half of them Amish. So it's a farm community, cornfields, just a small town. And there was 12 of us here in Nashville, all of us in music professionally. So I was like, boy, the odds of that are like, what, a couple people came down after I did, anyway, so I started looking back, and I realized that Elkhart County has the highest number of music manufacturers of any county in the United States. And of course, when you're from someplace, you just think, you don't really think of that kind of stuff. You just think that's the way every place is or whatever. But Gemeinhart flutes and Bach trumpets and Selmer and American keyboard, these are all major manufacturers, and there's more that are up there in that county. So the band boosters of all the schools and the band programs were really well supported by, all the parents and stuff. So there was a reason for it, but I didn't discover that until years after leaving. But it was a great town it was a great town. And I still get to go back to the same house from when I was 4 years old. So that's, I know, pretty rare. I'm in my 50s now, so. But anyway, this is an iwi, it's called, and it has its own sounds in it. And then I'm able to connect a wire up via MIDI MIDI, that stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, and it's how this instrument can talk to this instrument, and this can talk to this. And you can connect electronic instruments together, and it's the communicator part of it, which was developed in the mid-'80s. So I'm going to do a piece on this, and I've got it connected up to this little box here that is one of the most amazing synthesizers I've ever encountered. This little box right here contains the history of this company going back into the 80s, and it has sounds and algorithms from decades of their products, including like just giant synthesizers, and it's all in this one little box here. So Waldorf is the name of the company, but anyway, I've got the EWI connected to that. So let's do something with this. Need to find a sound here. Like I said, you know, most of the stuff I do is in the moment, and it's the difference between, hang on here, it's the difference between art and craft. You know, when you practice songs over and over and over and over again, that's crafting, basically. Just like if you would build, you know, like a little wooden car over and over and over again, that's a craft. But when you create a painting from scratch, or, you know, that's art. And when you create music in the moment, that's the art of the music. And so for me, it's a treat to be able to play that way for me, and it's a treat for the audience to be able to experience it, I think. So that's primarily what I'm interested in, playing that way. And this new show that I'm doing called The Music Tellers, that's exactly what it is. I'm bringing together a new band, a new group of people that have never played before. And we're doing a whole new set of music on the spot, in the moment, in front of the TV cameras. And it's pretty neat. I'm pretty excited by it. And I was working with a storyteller by the name of Bill Gord up in New York. We worked for about 5 years on an album. And it was all in the moment, in that he would spontaneously pull, he's got 400 or 500 folk tales in his mind at any one time. And we would start to play a little bit of music, and then he would, one of the stories would kind of surface depending on what we were playing musically, and we would go with it, and it's really an amazing way to work. So I was trying to think of what could the project be called. So we've got these storytellers, and I said, well, you know, we're doing the music. We were trying to tell the story through our music, and then music tellers popped into my head, and I was like, music tellers, I like that a lot. And got online and didn't find it anywhere. You know, for the most part, there was nobody else using it. So you can go to musictellers.com and find out what we're doing on that. So, okay, let's see what this sounds like. So that was the iwi. And man, there's a couple of weird things happening with this speaker over here. So that popping sound, I'm not sure what's going on there. But, and also an example of the moment kind of music. Well, really everything you've heard today, except for that one traditional Wayfaring Stranger that I played, is, you know, and I mean, there's motifs and things and sounds that I use. I mean, it's kind of like having your own, like when you do a painting, you have kind of a certain style, you know, a certain look, certain colors that you like to use. That's a consistent thing with what I do. I mean, I've got certain sounds and kind of a style of playing, and you know, it's a pretty relaxing style. I mean, even when I try to get a little more upbeat and stuff, it's still, even when I put drums and stuff in it, it still comes off as being kind of a relaxing and peaceful sound. So that's just something inherent with whatever I'm doing. And it's kind of the exciting thing with the music tellers. I'm the common denominator on that show, but you know, I'm bringing in some Grammy award-winning people, just unbelievable talented people that I've had the good fortune of working with. I'm just trying to bring them all through. Melanie will be one, and I've talked to her about doing a show, but it's going to be new stuff for her. She's going to be doing, I mean, they have to kind of comply to those guidelines. So, and I've talked to her before about that, and she's, you know, thought that'd be interesting. So, Nashville is amazing right now with the musicians that come through from all around the world. There's just an explosion of world-class stuff going on. So, I'm trying to capture some of that and document it and kind of present it in a hybrid way. So, all right, let's see. See if I can see what else I can bring up here. Anybody else have any questions while I'm...
Did you ever think about recording some of this with sounds of nature, like frogs, crickets, cicadas?
Yeah, actually one of the first projects I had in Nashville was with the Tennessee State Museum, and I think it was 1984. They were doing a film called The First Tennesseans, which was about the mound builders, not, you know, the ancient Native Americans or indigenous. Of course, we got mounds all over, you know, Middle Tennessee, and so it was about those people. And I definitely recorded a lot of nature sounds, like at the Narrows of the Harpeth, and so water sounds, leaves, and, you know, birds and all that. And I mixed it in with, and actually I used flute too, but I wasn't really playing Native American flute at that time. But I do remember for that project I did. But it was a long time ago.
Is that available? Is any of that stuff available to people? Or?
You know, it would be available at the Tennessee State Museum. I haven't seen it or heard it for decades, or a long time. And yeah, it'd be neat to find that again. Okay, let's get one of my other flutes here. You know, sometimes people call this kind of music, especially what I'm doing today, drone music, because there's always kind of a constant, whatever key it's in, kind of the root of the key is kind of droning in the background, which in a sense then is kind of like Indian music or some of the Eastern music, or even like some of the Celtic music where they have the hurdy-gurdy and some of the other instruments, or even violins that kind of play almost a drone. I'm doing that electronically, and it's just one of the ways, just something I like. In about 1986, we had a festival called Summer Lights here in Nashville in the 80s, which was a great festival, and I used to do pyrotechnic performance with a couple different people where we would put fireworks on our body and kind of go off in fireworks while we were playing music, or I was playing music, and sculptures and different stuff. So we had some pyro stuff on stage. We didn't tell the festival we were doing that, of course, because they wouldn't have let us do it. But it was one of the early concerts, and I just remember I did some of my drone stuff live for that, and several people came up, and then, at that time, they were like, "Wow, that was really, you got a lot of jam to be up there playing that kind of music." And it's like, well, I don't know, that's what I do, but I guess it sounded unusually different in Nashville at that time. But Nashville's actually had an interesting history of electronic music, and I hope to kind of encapsulate that in a show one day, all the way back into the 60s, and a lot of people are still around. We just lost one of our main inspirations, Don Evans, who was a Vanderbilt teacher, and he inspired me tremendously. He was a mentor of mine, and he inspired people all over in kind of multimedia and just doing stuff. That was his main thing. Just do it. Just do stuff. Get together and do stuff. And we did his memorial service on the 4th, actually, just a couple days ago, a memorial celebration with fireworks, because he was a pyrotechnic and a Vanderbilt professor. But anyway, let's move forward here. Let's see what we can come up with. Thank you. And everybody's still awake. So this flute I bought on eBay, and it's made out of PVC plastic. But it looks like, of course, I'm rubbing off the stain, but the guy that made this, it looks a lot like wood. I mean, he did an amazing job of staining the plastic. And there's even little tiny grain marks, little indentations in it. And $35 with a little maple wood, so your contact is wood. But the beautiful thing about this is, of course, it never goes out of tune. So you can take it anywhere, and it sounds good. I mean, I actually really like the way it sounds. So I've had that one a long time. And a lot of the flutes I've bought on eBay, quite a few of them. Some of the makers, that's just where they sell them. But what are we looking at here time-wise? Let me get the guitar here. Thank you. That kind of bring you back a little bit more to earth on that one. Well, does anybody else have any other questions? Been doing more talking than I normally do, for sure.
Tell everybody again, there's so many different websites for people that want to find out more about you.
Okay. Well, really, if you just type my name in, you can find a lot, which is Tony Gerber, just like baby food. So TonyGerber.com will get you most of it. But I've got a lot of stuff on YouTube, so if you want to watch some stuff, you can go over there. I do play quite a few festivals and stuff around. I do these series called Electro Music Festivals. And unfortunately, with a lot of this music, it's just not the numbers. Well, there's a couple things. One, lots of people don't know quite even how to deal with this music or how to use it. I get the types of comments I get from people is pretty amazing on how they use this kind of music. One of the ways is to help people focus. So there's a lot of people that do studies in school, students, and even a couple doctor friends of mine that do a lot of research, and they say that they play my music in the background to help them focus. So I know that's one thing. I received an email one time. This has been probably about 10 years ago. And this was when I had a label, a record label. I had about 32 artists that do this kind of music from around the world that I'd collected together, and I released on-demand CDs. So people ordered them, and I had duplication equipment and printing equipment and stuff, and I did the manufacturing myself. And there was one gentleman that evidently had a friend in Russia, and he sent her some of my music, and she sent me an email. It was a single mom who had 3 kids. One of them was a newborn baby. And she was just thanking me, and it was such a touching letter. The baby was having trouble sleeping and keeping her up, and she was getting sleep deprived, and she had 3 kids, and really was going through like a really difficult time. And somebody sent her one of my CDs, and it put the baby to sleep, and the baby could sleep all night long. And she was just like, this was like a lifesaver for her. And the thing about over there is that, some of those people only make $15 in a month. So there's no way, I don't have any delivery system or any way of matching what their economic situation is there to sell them anything. So one gentleman in Russia, I sent him copies and gave him permission to make copies of it, basically. After that, I was like, you know what? if there's people that can use it that way, I'm not, go ahead and make copies and do whatever you want, because I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna try to do a lawsuit or anything. It's not about that. Well, now several years after, I have noticed that there's some royalty companies that collect royalties around the world, and there are like 3 or 4 Russian labels that sell several of my albums. So, but I'm not, like I said, I don't get concerned about that, because there's no way to really deal with that kind of economy. iTunes, a 99-cent song is a 15th of their income for a month. They can't even buy a 99-cent song. It's crazy. So anyway, this music, part of what trying to do is discover how people can use it in different ways, and just get it out there and let people know that to try it for different things. Because even post-operation stuff, one guy said he had one song of mine he played 400 times, after an operation, and he didn't have to take real hardcore, drugs, because he could listen to this song, and it put his mind someplace that took it. I don't know how all that works, because I don't specifically study any of that stuff. When I say in the moment, very well could be the same as in the spirit. It's really, I don't know. It's that whatever that creative, pure energy is that you can tune into. We as musicians tune into it a lot of times. It's the same energy it's in churches, and it's in. I mean, it's just. I think it's the same kind of energy, and so that that being said, you can find a lot of stuff online, and we've got a lot of projects coming up and going to be a little more active and out there. So hopefully you'll hear more from me and see more in the near future. So.
That's exciting. They're running out of tape.
Yep.
Which is sad.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
This is the one. Yeah.
You normally play by by yourself, or tour? Do you have any other?
Yeah, I had a band for several years called Spacecraft, and which were internationally known. I mean, that was well, I mean, I had albums out before that, so I had a name before that too. But I've got a lot of. I'm going to concentrate a lot of my energy on the music tellers, which like I said, I'm really excited by that whole concept, and I'm also working with some musicians like the Wootons, and working some with Melanie, and just I'm trying to mix into some of the other genres, kind of bring some of the people, because what I've noticed, I do a regular Sunday night broadcast every Sunday night since 2008. I do a 1-hour concert. You can tune in online if you go to my website, tonygerber.com. I think I've got an explanation on there somewhere how you can do that. But I have a website called Cyp Radio, CYP, like Cypress, Rosewood, cypradio.com. It's going 24/7 all the time with my music and the music that was on my label and stuff. Then when I play live, I turn off the playlist that's playing, and I just turn on my mixer, and then I'm broadcasting live on that station. So every Sunday night you can hear that. Well, lots of times I ask people to come join me on Sunday nights. In my studio, I've got a little place where they can set up. Actually, this is the table that they normally use. And I've just noticed that, and we do it, there's not a whole lot of discussion. I don't overanalyze anything. We hook it up. We got good sound, good monitoring, and basically we might play a few sounds and kind of get a couple of our sound colors together. And I might say, let's start off in D, but there's not a whole lot of discussion. And these guys, I know before I ask them, of course, that they're able to do this kind of the moment type of music. But the response has been really great because they don't normally get to do that often. And so after seeing that, that's kind of why it's spawned this idea. It's like, what, I could put together easily 13 shows with, 40 or 50 different musicians that I know can do this. Not so much classical musicians. This would scare the heck out of them. I mean, and it's just two different ways of approaching music. But the jazz musicians, and there's just a lot of, for instance, the Motown guys at Motown in the 60s, when they created all those great grooves and those great songs, when they were in the studio, because I've met those guys and I've talked to them about it, and their engineer producer, they just created that stuff. They just created that in the moment. That's how that all come about. And those guys, we lost Bob Babbitt within the past year, but 3 of the guys lived here in Nashville, and the funny thing is nobody would hire them all at the same time. People would hire one of the guys to come in and they'd say, play like you did on such and such song. And say, well, that's not at all that's not the way you get them to really give you what they're truly capable of, So that was kind of how I discovered that. Bob Olson here in Nashville, he was an engineer and mastering from 1965 to 1972. So, he did all that stuff. Is a friend of mine. He lives there. So he had me come over, and he took him in the studio, and he did just that because he knew how it worked, and he just let them kind of spawn some new music by just creating a nice, comfortable environment for them to do that. And that's really what I'm trying to do with all these other musicians, is try to create an environment and just not overtell anybody, not have any egos, not just let just let the people do what they're passionate and what they're really able to do. Just bring the right people together, and just kind of we start, and everybody does their job, and it works. And that's how it's going, and we'll see if we can keep that going. But it seems to have some magic. So thanks, Tina, for asking me to come over here, and Kelly? Katherine, sorry. Thanks, Katherine, for introducing and doing all that. So that's, yeah.
I want to thank everyone for coming out today despite the weather. I know this was an incredible afternoon, and I hope you all appreciated this and enjoyed it as much as I know I did. Thank you all again for coming. Thank you for being here. This was absolutely amazing. And as always, you can catch us here every first Saturday of the month, where we have a new musician, new music, different genres. You never know what you're going to find, see, hear at the Williamson County Library right here in Franklin. So we'd love to see you next month as well. So thank you so much for being here, and have a great afternoon.
Somebody took it away from me in the blink of an eye. In less than a month, this woman destroyed what I had worked for 15 years.
I mean, your credit score is basically all you have.
I was mugged, they got my information.
It can really negatively affect your life.
Then they went off with the information and basically became me.
I feel it's a loss of control, that someone's out there pretending to be you and doing things in your name that can come back to haunt you.
Somebody was using my name and all my personal data.
They'd done it all. I just didn't even know where to start. They had a long record.
It's a terrible feeling.
Identity theft. It happens when your personal information is stolen and used without your knowledge. It's a serious crime that can cost you time and money, ruin your credit, and destroy your good name.
When I was a victim of identity theft, my mail had been stolen.
I was shopping at a grocery store, and someone took my wallet.
I think I made a purchase and they stole all my debit card information.
My briefcase had been tampered with, and when I looked in it, I saw that my passport and my driver's license, which I had in there, had been taken.
Identity theft happens when someone takes information about you and then uses it to commit fraud.
Identity theft is very serious.
We know that identity fraud in its various forms has affected 10 million people in any given year. And what that means in dollars is that it's a loss to businesses of about $50 billion. On top of that, victims of identity theft have spent $5 billion trying to undo this harm.
Everyone needs to be conscious that identity theft is real.
When you get news that your identity has been potentially stolen, it's sort of this open-ended problem that has occurred, and you don't know what's going to come of it.
No one's immune, which isn't to say that we're powerless. There's a lot we can do to deter, detect, and defend ourselves.
My identity was stolen when I was mugged. It is pretty traumatic, especially how it happened to me. They got my information, and it happened. Then they went off with the information and basically became me when they went to charging items in stores.
Identity thieves can only take advantage of you if you give them information or if they obtain information about you. So what you want to do is take steps to make it less likely that your information falls into the wrong hands. There are many ways that you can do that. And the first is to stop and look in your wallet. What are you carrying around? And if you lose your wallet, are you giving somebody else an opportunity to commit identity theft? So avoid carrying around any identification that has your social security number on it in your wallet, because that can be used very easily and efficiently by identity thieves.
They could have your name, they could have your birth date, but if they don't have your social security number, they're not going to get very far. But all they really need is a social security number, and they can misspell your name and still get credit.
The only place that social security card number should be is in your head, and protect it somewhere at home where you keep your other valuables.
And if someone asks you to provide a social security number, ask them why they need it. how they're going to keep it, how they're going to safeguard it, because you don't want that number to fall into the wrong hands.
I had an incident that I thought was a valid reason to give out information until they asked for my Social Security number. I went as far as the first 3 digits. I thought, gee, they don't need that. And then I hung up.
This is a crime. You have to think when you're at home, protect your identity. Don't leave around your personal documents, your date of birth. Somebody could come into your home and have immediate access to that information.
You also have to be careful about your trash. Now, a lot of people routinely receive things in the mail, maybe bank statements, credit card statements, or health insurance forms, and if they don't need them, they just throw them away in the trash. They shouldn't do that. Everyone should invest in a shredder. So before they dispose of these critical documents, you shred them. Identity thieves, don't worry about getting their hands dirty. They will go through your trash to retrieve these documents. They go where the information is. They'll steal your mail, they will steal your trash, they'll steal your wallet, and that's how they get information about you.
Deter identity theft. Protect your Social Security number. Shred financial documents and paperwork with any personal information before you throw them out. Never give out personal information on the phone or internet unless you know who you are dealing with.
My name is Nicole M. Robinson. The woman who stole my identity, her name is Nicole A. Robinson. She stole my information from the pharmaceutical company that she works for. After this happened, it devastated my financial life. I ordered my credit reports, and I received a credit report in the mail that was 54 pages long. It had over 170 accounts, 140 of them were in collections. It had 42 different names and 65 different addresses on it. Not only was somebody else reaping the benefits of my good credit, I could no longer have access to my own good credit. And I cried. I cried every day for 3 months.
On top of the financial and the time that people spend in resolving these issues, it's an emotional burden on victims.
My life before the identity theft case was wonderful. In less than a month, this woman destroyed what I had worked for 15 years. She got my life.
If an identity thief uses, for example, your Social Security number and applies for new credit in your name, as opposed to raiding an existing account, there may be no way for you to know about it unless you've checked your credit report and you see that a new account that you didn't even know about has been opened in your name. That's why it's very important to monitor your credit report regularly.
Detect identity theft. Check your credit report at annualcreditreport.com. Federal law gives you the right to a free credit report every year from the 3 national consumer reporting companies. Review your financial accounts regularly. Look for charges you did not make.
When someone realizes that they're a victim of identity theft, it's like getting a kick in the gut. You know, you feel paralyzed for a moment, but it's really essential for victims to move quickly and deliberately in starting to resolve the problems that arise from identity theft.
I did what everybody knows to do, and that's call your credit card companies and cancel your credit cards. However, that's not enough. There was one major bit of information I did not have, and that was to call the 3 major credit bureaus. And I did not do that, and what happened was this person then went back. She was able to reopen the credit cards that I canceled. She was also able to open new credit cards in my name.
If you find you've become a victim of identity theft, the first thing you need to do is contact one of the 3 major credit reporting agencies and have them put a fraud alert on your file.
You got to take it seriously. You even suspect it, you got to put fraud alerts on. You got to take the steps to protect yourself, and you got to inform yourself about what to do so that when it does happen to you, you can do it quickly because time is critical.
You next want to contact each of the creditors or other institutions where your information has been misused. Then you follow up in writing and dispute these accounts and get a letter from them resolving these disputed fraudulent accounts.
The FTC has an affidavit, which in my case I used, to write out your explanation of what happened that you can then use to submit to creditors trying to collect on fraudulent accounts. When you're trying to tell them, look, my identity was stolen, it helps prove it to them.
You next want to contact your local police department, report the crime, and get a copy of the police report.
You should contact the police immediately because otherwise you have no proof that there was a crime.
It's very important that you report it to the police because there are certain agencies that you need or we recommend that you contact, and they're probably going to refer you back to the police department to see if you have a police report or not.
And finally, you need to contact the Federal Trade Commission online at ftc.gov/ID theft or call us toll-free at 877-ID theft to report this to us.
Defend against identity theft. Call the 3 credit reporting companies and place a fraud alert on your credit report. Then ask for the free credit report you're entitled to. Close any accounts that you suspect have been tampered with or opened fraudulently. Start by calling the security or fraud department of each company. Follow up in writing and include copies of supporting documents. File a police report. Contact the FTC. Your information also helps law enforcement officials across the country to track down and stop ID thieves.
Let's treat our personal information as we would our cash. Let's safeguard it, whether we're at home, whether it's in our purse or our wallet, or at our office.
Your personal information is cash, and in the wrong hands, it can destroy your life.
The FTC plays a central role in helping victims avoid and recover from identity theft. So we have developed substantial consumer education material that's available on our website at ftc.gov/ID theft.
Identity theft is serious, but even if your identity has been stolen and there has been, fraudulent accounts open in your name, you can defend yourself and get those resolved in your favor.
There are times when you just do not want to finish and you just want to say, forget it, I can't do this anymore. But you have to find that way inside of you to just keep going, because this is something that if you don't clear, it definitely affects the rest of your life.
What I want is for us to create a culture of security for our personal information so that this crime in the future will be diminished greatly.